Confidence is built, not born. The Truth About Fearless Living, published by the Growth Mind Audiobook. Introduction. Every confident person you've ever admired has one thing in common. At some point, they were afraid. They doubted themselves before making the presentation. They questioned whether they were qualified before starting the business. They felt nervous before walking into the interview, speaking in front of a crowd, asking for the promotion, or making a life-changing decision. What separates them from everyone else isn't that they were born with extraordinary confidence. It's that they refuse to let fear make the decision for them. That's the truth most people never hear. We often imagine confidence as the starting line. We tell ourselves, when I feel more confident, I'll speak up. When I believe in myself, I'll take the opportunity. When I'm ready, I'll finally change my life. But confidence has never worked that way. It has always been the result of action, not the reason for it. Every meaningful achievement begins with uncertainty. Every breakthrough begins with a decision that feels uncomfortable. Every stronger version of yourself is built the moment you stop waiting for perfect conditions and start taking imperfect action. This audiobook is not an invitation to think differently. It is a challenge to live differently. Throughout this journey, you won't simply learn what confidence is. You'll discover how it is forged. You'll challenge the beliefs that have kept you playing small. You'll confront the fears you've spent years avoiding. You'll take action before certainty arrives. You'll train yourself to stay steady in uncomfortable moments instead of retreating from them. You'll build habits that strengthen self-trust, recover from setbacks without losing momentum, stop depending on other people's approval, and develop an identity that no longer bends to fear. None of this happens overnight. Confidence isn't created in one dramatic moment. It's earned through hundreds of ordinary decisions that most people avoid. It's built every time you raise your hand instead of staying silent. Every time you keep your word to yourself, every time you step into uncertainty instead of running back to comfort, every time you get knocked down and choose to stand up again. By the time you reach the final chapter, your goal won't be to eliminate fear. Fear will always exist. Your goal will be something far more powerful, to become the kind of person who acts anyway. Because fearless living isn't about having no fear. It's about making sure fear no longer has the authority to write your future. So don't wait for confidence to arrive. Take the first step. Keep moving when it gets uncomfortable. Keep showing up when doubt returns. Keep choosing courage over comfort. Because the life you've been waiting for begins the moment action becomes stronger than fear. Chapter 1. Burn the identity that keeps you small. Think back to a moment when you admired someone who seemed completely confident. Maybe it was a leader speaking to a crowded room, an entrepreneur taking a bold risk, or someone who simply had the courage to express their opinions without apologizing for them. From the outside, it probably looked effortless. You may have assumed they were naturally gifted with confidence while you were left trying to figure out where yours had gone. That assumption is where the real problem begins. One of the most limiting beliefs a person can carry is the idea that confidence is a personality trait rather than a skill. It's an invisible story that quietly shapes every decision you make. If you believe confident people are born that way, then every challenge becomes evidence that you simply don't have what it takes. Every mistake confirms the story. Every hesitation feels like proof. Before long, you stop testing your limits because you've convinced yourself they're permanent. But the identity you've created is not the same as who you truly are. Identity is built from repetition. Over time, your mind collects experiences and begins creating labels. Maybe you failed a presentation years ago and your mind decided, I'm not good at public speaking. Perhaps someone criticized your ideas and you concluded, I'm not leadership material. Maybe rejection convinced you that you weren't capable enough, smart enough, or brave enough. Those moments were real, but the conclusions you drew from them became something much larger. They became the lens through which you started seeing yourself. The danger is that labels become instructions. Once you tell yourself, I'm shy, I'm awkward, or I'm not confident, your brain begins searching for evidence to support those beliefs. You notice every uncomfortable moment while ignoring every small success. You replay your failures but quickly forget your victories. Without realizing it, you become loyal to an outdated version of yourself. Here's the truth that changes everything. You are not trapped by your past experiences. You are only trapped by the meaning you've attached to them. Every confident person carries stories of embarrassment, failure, rejection, and uncertainty. The difference isn't that their journey was easier. The difference is that they refused to let those experiences define their identity. They treated failure as an event instead of a permanent description of who they were. Imagine carrying a backpack filled with heavy stones. Every stone represents a belief you've collected over the years. I'm not good enough. I'm too quiet. I always fail. People will judge me. It's too late to change. You may have carried those stones for so long that you've forgotten they're even there. They feel like part of you, but they're not. They're simply weight you've become accustomed to carrying. Confidence begins the moment you decide to put that backpack down. This doesn't happen through positive thinking alone. It begins with honest self-awareness. Ask yourself, what story have I been repeating for years? Not the story you tell other people, but the one that quietly plays in your mind whenever an opportunity appears. The story that says, someone else can do this better. The story that whispers, don't embarrass yourself. The story that convinces you to stay comfortable instead of taking a risk. Most of those stories were written long ago by experiences that no longer reflect who you are today. Yet you've continued reading from the same script as if nothing has changed. The first step toward confidence is refusing to let yesterday write tomorrow. Think about how often people introduce themselves without speaking a single word. Some walk into a room already believing they belong. Others walk in hoping no one notices them. The difference isn't talent or intelligence, it's identity. The person who believes they belong behaves differently from the person who believes they don't. Their posture changes, their decisions change, their willingness to act changes. Your identity always influences your behavior long before your behavior influences your results. If you see yourself as someone who avoids challenges, you'll avoid them. If you believe you're someone who grows through challenges, you'll begin approaching them differently. The action may be the same, but the mindset behind it transforms everything. Today, make one decision. Stop treating your current identity as a life sentence. See it for what it really is, a collection of habits, beliefs, and experiences that can be rewritten. The person you've been is not the person you must remain. Every meaningful transformation starts with letting go of an identity that no longer serves you. Before you can become confident, you must stop protecting the version of yourself that fear created. Burn the old story. Leave the labels behind. Refuse to let yesterday define your future, because the strongest prison is never built with walls. It's built with beliefs. And the moment those beliefs begin to fall, the person you've always been capable of becoming finally has room to rise. Chapter 2. Hunt down the fear running your life. The moment you stop allowing your past to define your future, another challenge steps into view. You begin to notice something that has been quietly directing your choices for years. It isn't a lack of talent. It isn't a lack of intelligence or opportunity. It's fear. Fear is a remarkable survival tool. It has protected human beings for thousands of years, warning us about genuine danger and helping us stay alive. But the modern world presents a different kind of threat. Most of us are no longer running from predators or fighting for survival. Instead, we fear embarrassment, rejection, criticism, uncertainty, failure, and sometimes even success. The strange part is that our minds often respond to these situations as if they were life or death emergencies. That's why your heart races before an important conversation. It's why your palms sweat before speaking in front of a group. It's why you hesitate before taking a chance that could improve your life. Your brain isn't trying to sabotage you. It's trying to protect you. The problem is that it can't always tell the difference between physical danger and emotional discomfort. Fear doesn't usually announce itself with dramatic warnings. It prefers quieter disguises. Sometimes it calls itself perfectionism. You convince yourself you'll start when everything is ready, when your skills improve, or when you know just a little more. Weeks become months, and months become years. What looked like preparation was often fear delaying action. Sometimes fear wears the mask of logic. You tell yourself the timing isn't right, the risk is too high, or someone else is better qualified. While those reasons may sound sensible, they often hide a deeper question you're afraid to ask. What if I try and fail? Other times, fear hides behind comfort. You settle into routines that feel familiar, even when they no longer help you grow. Staying where you are feels safer than stepping into uncertainty, so you convince yourself that comfort is enough. Yet deep down, you know that comfort and fulfillment are not always the same thing. One of the most powerful exercises you can do is to stop asking, "What am I afraid of?" and start asking, "What decision has fear already made for me?" Has fear convinced you to stay silent when you had something valuable to say? Has it stopped you from applying for a better job, starting a business, ending an unhealthy relationship, or pursuing a dream you've carried for years? Fear rarely steals opportunities all at once. It does so one small decision at a time until the life you wanted quietly becomes the life you settled for. The difficult truth is that fear grows stronger when it goes unquestioned. Imagine walking through a dark room. Every shadow seems larger than it really is because you can't see it clearly. The moment you switch on the light, the room changes. The furniture hasn't moved, but your perspective has. Fear works much the same way. What remains hidden often appears overwhelming. What is examined honestly usually becomes manageable. This doesn't mean every fear disappears the moment you recognize it. Awareness alone isn't enough. But awareness is where control begins. You can't change a pattern you refuse to acknowledge. Think about a child learning to ride a bicycle. At first, every attempt feels uncertain. Falling seems almost inevitable. Yet with each attempt, the fear loses a little of its authority, not because the child suddenly becomes fearless, but because experience begins replacing imagination. What once felt impossible gradually becomes ordinary. The same principle applies throughout life. Confidence isn't built by avoiding situations that make you uncomfortable. It's built by entering them often enough to prove that you can survive, adapt, and grow. Every difficult conversation you finally have, every opportunity you decide to pursue, every challenge you stop avoiding becomes evidence that fear is not an all-powerful force. It's simply an emotion, and emotions are temporary. There is another fear that deserves special attention because it quietly influences almost every other one: the fear of judgment. Many people don't avoid opportunities because they believe they'll fail. They avoid them because they're worried someone else will witness the failure. They imagine criticism before they've even taken the first step. They replay conversations that haven't happened and create opinions that don't yet exist. In doing so, they hand strangers the power to shape their future. Ask yourself a simple question. How many decisions have you made based on what other people might think? The answer may surprise you. Most people are far more focused on their own lives than on yours. The criticism you fear is often far smaller than the regret you'll carry if you never try. Years from now, you won't remember every awkward moment or imperfect attempt, but you'll remember the opportunities you allowed fear to steal without a fight. So today, stop treating fear like a command. Treat it like information. Let it point toward the places where growth is waiting. When fear appears, don't ask, "How can I make this feeling disappear?" Ask, "What opportunity is this feeling trying to protect me from?" Because fear doesn't disappear when you ignore it. It begins to lose its power the moment you face it, name it, and refuse to let it decide who you become. Chapter 3. Attack fear with immediate action. By now, you've uncovered two powerful truths. First, the identity that kept you small was never permanent. Second, many of the decisions shaping your life have been quietly influenced by fear. But awareness alone won't change your future. You can recognize every limiting belief, understand every hidden fear, and still remain exactly where you are if you never act. This is where most people get stuck. They believe they need one more book, one more course, one more plan, or one more burst of motivation before taking the first step. They mistake preparation for progress. While learning is valuable, there comes a point when gathering more information becomes another way of delaying action. Fear doesn't always tell you to quit. Sometimes it simply convinces you to wait, and waiting feels reasonable. You tell yourself next week will be better, next month you'll have more time, next year you'll have more experience. But life has a way of turning "not yet" into "maybe never." Opportunities don't always disappear because someone else takes them. Sometimes they disappear because we never step forward to claim them. The uncomfortable truth is this: confidence has never been created by thinking about action. It has always been created by taking action. Think about the first time you learned to swim. Standing at the edge of the pool, you could study every technique, memorize every breathing exercise, and understand exactly how your body should move through the water. But none of that knowledge would replace the moment you actually stepped in. The water always feels different than you imagined. The experience teaches what information never could. Life works the same way. Action has a way of answering questions that overthinking cannot. One conversation can replace months of worrying. One presentation can destroy years of believing you're not a confident speaker. One application can prove you're more qualified than you assumed. One difficult decision can completely change how you see yourself. This doesn't mean every action leads to immediate success. Sometimes you'll stumble. Sometimes you'll hear no instead of yes. Sometimes the outcome won't match your expectations. But even then, you've gained something more valuable than certainty. You've gained experience. Experience reshapes belief far more effectively than imagination ever will. Fear thrives in the gap between thinking and doing. The longer you remain in that space, the more convincing fear becomes. Your mind begins creating problems that don't exist. It predicts conversations that never happen, failures that never occur, and embarrassment that often exists only in your imagination. The story grows larger while your willingness to act grows smaller. The fastest way to interrupt that cycle is movement. Not perfect movement, not dramatic movement, just movement. A single phone call, a single email, a single introduction, a single application, a single conversation you've been avoiding. Small actions may seem insignificant, but they carry enormous psychological power. Every time you act despite uncertainty, you send your brain a new message. I can handle this. That message becomes evidence. Evidence becomes belief. Belief becomes identity. This is why momentum matters. People often imagine confidence arriving in one extraordinary moment, but real transformation usually happens quietly. It happens when you continue showing up after the excitement fades. It happens when you keep your promises to yourself on ordinary days. It happens when action becomes a habit rather than an occasional burst of inspiration. There will always be reasons to delay. You won't know everything. You won't feel completely ready. You'll never eliminate every risk. If those conditions were required, no meaningful achievement would ever happen. Instead of asking, "What if I fail?" ask a different question. What happens if I never try? That question changes everything. Failure often teaches lessons that success cannot. Regret, on the other hand, teaches very little. It simply reminds you of opportunities you never gave yourself permission to pursue. The people you admire aren't fearless because life has been easy. They appear confident because they've practiced taking action before certainty arrived. Over time, what once felt terrifying became familiar. Not because fear disappeared, but because action became stronger than hesitation. Here's another truth worth remembering. Courage is rarely loud. Most acts of courage happen in ordinary moments that no one else notices. It's choosing to introduce yourself instead of staying quiet. It's admitting you made a mistake instead of protecting your ego. It's asking for help when pride tells you not to. It's standing by your values when taking the easier path would be more comfortable. These moments may never make headlines, but they shape the person you become. Every action is a vote for your future identity. Every time you choose movement over avoidance, you're proving that fear no longer deserves to lead your life. Every challenge you face strengthens your ability to face the next one. Every uncomfortable decision expands what you believe is possible. Don't wait for the day you finally feel fearless. Take the step while your heart is still racing. Speak while your voice still shakes. Begin before every answer is clear, because confidence has never belonged to the people who waited until they were ready. It has always belonged to the people who were willing to move first and trust that courage would meet them along the way. Chapter 4. Push through the pain of growth. The moment you begin taking action, something unexpected happens. You don't instantly become fearless. In fact, you may feel even more uncomfortable than before. Your heart beats faster. Doubt grows louder. The temptation to return to familiar routines becomes stronger than ever. This is the stage where many people mistakenly believe they are doing something wrong. They assume that if growth feels difficult, they must not be ready. If confidence hasn't arrived yet, they conclude they're not making progress. But the opposite is often true. Discomfort is rarely a sign that you're failing. More often, it's evidence that you're stretching beyond the limits of your old identity. Think about how muscles grow. A workout doesn't make you stronger because it's comfortable. It makes you stronger because it challenges your current capacity. The strain isn't the goal, but it is part of the process. Your character develops in much the same way. Every difficult conversation, every bold decision, and every unfamiliar challenge asks more of you than yesterday did. That demand is exactly what creates growth. The mistake is believing that comfort and progress can exist together for long. Comfort encourages repetition. Growth requires adaptation. If you continue doing only what feels safe, you'll continue becoming the same person you've always been. This doesn't mean you should seek hardship for its own sake. It means you should stop interpreting discomfort as a warning to retreat. Instead, begin seeing it as a signal that you're learning something your former self couldn't do. Consider the first day at a new job. Almost everything feels uncertain. You don't know every process, every expectation, or every colleague. Simple tasks require extra effort because nothing feels familiar. Yet after weeks or months, those same responsibilities become second nature. The work didn't become easier because the job changed. It became easier because you changed. Growth follows the same pattern in every area of life. The first difficult conversation feels intimidating. The second feels manageable. The 10th becomes something you handle with calm confidence. The challenge hasn't disappeared. You've simply developed the capacity to meet it. One reason people avoid discomfort is because they mistake temporary emotions for permanent reality. Anxiety convinces you that an uncomfortable moment will last forever. It won't. Every feeling rises, reaches a peak, and eventually fades. The decision you make while experiencing that feeling, however, can influence your life for years. Learning to stay present during uncomfortable moments is one of the greatest skills you can develop. Instead of asking, "How do I escape this feeling?" ask, "What is this moment teaching me?" That simple shift transforms discomfort from an obstacle into a classroom. You'll also discover that resilience isn't built during easy seasons. It is built when plans fall apart, when expectations aren't met, and when life demands more than you expected to give. Those moments reveal strengths you didn't know you possessed because they force you to rely on qualities that comfort never required. Every challenge you face leaves something behind. Sometimes it's a new skill, sometimes it's greater patience, sometimes it's a deeper belief in your ability to recover. Even when the outcome isn't perfect, the experience expands your capacity for future success. The goal isn't to become someone who never feels uncomfortable. The goal is to become someone who no longer lets discomfort determine their decisions. Remember, every confident person you've ever admired has walked through seasons of uncertainty. They felt the same hesitation, questioned themselves, and wondered whether they were capable. What separated them wasn't a lack of fear, it was their willingness to keep moving while fear was still present. So when growth feels difficult, don't assume you've taken the wrong path. Pause, breathe, and keep going. The discomfort you're experiencing today is shaping the confidence you'll rely on tomorrow. Comfort preserves who you are. Challenge reveals who you can become. And every time you choose growth over familiarity, you step closer to becoming the person fear can no longer control. Chapter 5. Forge daily discipline until confidence becomes automatic. By this point in your journey, you've challenged old beliefs, confronted the fears that once controlled your decisions, taken action before feeling ready, and learned to stay on the path even when growth became uncomfortable. But there's one question that still remains. How do you make confidence last? Many people experience moments of courage. They leave an inspiring seminar, finish reading a great book, or achieve a meaningful goal and feel unstoppable for a while. Then, life returns to normal. The excitement fades, distractions appear, and old habits quietly reclaim their place. Before long, they wonder where all that confidence went. The answer is simple, but not always easy. Confidence cannot survive on inspiration alone. It must be supported by discipline. Discipline is often misunderstood. People imagine it as endless willpower or a rigid lifestyle with no room for mistakes. In reality, discipline is much more practical. It's the ability to keep doing what matters, even when your emotions suggest doing something else. The greatest advantage of discipline is that it removes the need to make the same decision over and over again. Imagine two people who both want to become healthier. One waits until they feel motivated before exercising. The other has already decided that every morning, regardless of mood, they will go for a walk or complete a workout. After several months, the difference becomes obvious. One person has collected good intentions. The other has collected results. Confidence grows in exactly the same way. Every promise you keep to yourself strengthens your self-trust. Every promise you break weakens it. If you tell yourself you'll wake up early but repeatedly ignore the alarm, your mind begins to question your reliability. If you promise to speak up in meetings but remain silent every time, you reinforce the belief that your fear is stronger than your commitment. On the other hand, every time you follow through, even in small ways, you build evidence that you are someone who can be trusted. And that trust becomes the foundation of genuine confidence. This is why small habits matter far more than dramatic gestures. Reading 10 pages every day is more powerful than finishing one book and never opening another. Practicing a skill for 30 minutes each day creates greater mastery than spending an entire weekend trying to make up for months of inaction. A single courageous conversation every week builds more confidence than endlessly rehearsing conversations that never happen. Small actions repeated consistently create extraordinary change because they reshape your identity without demanding perfection. There will be days when you don't feel motivated. There will be mornings when progress seems invisible, and evenings when you're tempted to believe your efforts aren't making a difference. Those are the moments that matter most. Anyone can stay committed when the results are obvious. Character is built when the results are still hidden. Think of confidence as a savings account. Every disciplined action is a small deposit. One deposit won't make you wealthy, but thousands of deposits over time create something remarkable. In the same way, one brave decision won't permanently transform your life. Hundreds of courageous choices repeated day after day will. It's also important to understand that discipline doesn't require perfection. You will occasionally miss a workout, delay a task, avoid a difficult conversation, or make a decision you later regret. Those moments don't erase your progress. What matters is how quickly you return to the habits that move you forward. The goal is never to avoid mistakes. The goal is to avoid making the same excuse twice. As your discipline grows, something unexpected begins to happen. The actions that once required tremendous courage become part of your normal routine. Speaking with confidence no longer feels forced. Taking initiative becomes natural. Facing challenges becomes your first response instead of your last resort. This is the quiet transformation that most people never notice. Confidence hasn't appeared like magic. It has been patiently constructed through ordinary choices repeated with extraordinary consistency. Remember, your future isn't shaped by the occasional breakthrough. It's shaped by the standards you refuse to compromise. So keep your promises to yourself. Protect the habits that strengthen your character. Show up even when no one is watching. Because every disciplined action is another brick in the foundation of unshakable confidence. And one day you'll look back and realize that what once felt impossible has simply become the way you live. Chapter 6. Command every conversation and every room. After building confidence through consistent action and daily discipline, something begins to shift. The change is no longer happening only inside you. It starts becoming visible to the people around you. Confidence has a presence. It isn't about having the loudest voice, dominating every discussion, or trying to impress everyone you meet. Real confidence is quieter than that. It shows itself through calm decisions, thoughtful words, steady body language, and the ability to remain composed when others lose control. Many people mistake attention for influence. They believe confidence means constantly speaking, always having the perfect answer, or becoming the center of every conversation. In reality, the people who leave the strongest impression are often those who know when to speak, when to listen, and when to remain silent with purpose. Before you ever say a word, people notice how you carry yourself. The way you walk into a room communicates something. Your posture, eye contact, facial expressions, and energy all send messages before any conversation begins. If you enter looking uncertain, apologetic, or eager to disappear, people naturally sense hesitation. But when you stand with quiet composure, maintain open body language, and make genuine eye contact, you communicate something far more powerful. You trust yourself. That trust encourages others to trust you too. This doesn't mean pretending to be someone you're not. Authentic confidence is never an act. It's the natural result of knowing you don't need to prove your worth to anyone. The same principle applies to communication. Confident people don't rush to fill every silence. They don't interrupt because they're afraid their ideas will be forgotten. They don't speak louder simply to gain attention. Instead, they choose their words carefully, listen with genuine curiosity, and respond rather than react. There is enormous strength in speaking with intention. Think about the conversations that have stayed with you over the years. Chances are they weren't memorable because someone spoke the most. They were memorable because someone spoke with clarity, honesty, and conviction. The goal isn't to sound impressive. The goal is to be understood. One habit that quietly weakens confidence is the constant search for approval during conversations. You may find yourself apologizing unnecessarily, minimizing your opinions, or changing your viewpoint simply to avoid disagreement. While compromise has its place, abandoning your own perspective just to be accepted slowly erodes your self-respect. You don't have to win every discussion. You don't have to convince everyone to agree with you. You simply need the courage to express your thoughts respectfully and stand behind them. Confidence also appears in the way you make decisions. Indecision often comes from the fear of making the wrong choice. We analyze every possibility, hoping to eliminate all risk before moving forward. But life rarely offers complete certainty. Strong decision-makers understand that progress comes from making thoughtful choices, learning from the outcome, and adjusting when necessary. Waiting for perfect certainty usually creates greater regret than making an imperfect decision. Another quality of confident people is emotional steadiness. When criticism arrives, they listen before reacting. When challenges appear, they focus on solutions instead of panic. When success comes, they remain humble because they know growth never truly ends. Their confidence isn't dependent on applause, and it doesn't disappear because someone disagrees with them. This kind of presence cannot be manufactured overnight. It develops through every promise you've kept to yourself, every fear you've faced, every setback you've overcome, and every uncomfortable situation you've chosen not to avoid. The confidence you've been building internally now becomes visible externally, not because you're trying to appear confident, but because you've earned the quiet certainty that comes from experience. As you move through life, remember that every room you enter offers a choice. You can arrive hoping others will validate your worth, or you can arrive knowing your value isn't determined by anyone else's opinion. Walk in with purpose, listen with respect, speak with clarity, decide with conviction, lead with humility. Because the most influential people aren't the ones demanding attention. They're the ones whose calm confidence makes others feel secure, inspired, and willing to follow. And when your presence begins reflecting the person you've worked so hard to become, you'll discover that true confidence doesn't announce itself. It simply enters the room and everyone feels it. Chapter 7. Turn every defeat into your greatest weapon. The more confidently you begin to live, the more willing you'll become to take meaningful risks. You'll speak when others remain silent, pursue opportunities that once intimidated you, and make decisions that move your life forward. But with greater action comes something that cannot be avoided. You will fail. Not every plan will succeed. Not every opportunity will lead where you expected. Some ideas won't work, some relationships will disappoint you, and some goals will take much longer than you imagined. This isn't a sign that you've chosen the wrong path. It's proof that you're finally living beyond the boundaries of your comfort zone. The greatest mistake people make is believing that confident individuals rarely fail. The truth is almost the opposite. They often fail more frequently because they attempt more things. The difference is that they refuse to let failure become a permanent identity. Failure is an event. It is never a definition. Imagine a sculptor standing before a block of stone. With every strike of the chisel, small pieces fall away. To someone unfamiliar with the process, it might look like the artist is destroying the stone. In reality, each strike is revealing the masterpiece hidden inside. Growth works much the same way. Every setback chips away at false expectations, weak habits, and limiting beliefs, revealing a stronger version of yourself beneath them. This is why your response to failure matters far more than the failure itself. Some people experience one setback and immediately retreat. They interpret the outcome as evidence that they aren't talented enough or capable enough. Others ask a different question. Instead of saying, "Why did this happen to me?" they ask, "What is this experience trying to teach me?" That single shift changes everything. Failure always contains information. Sometimes it reveals a skill you need to develop. Sometimes it exposes poor preparation or unrealistic expectations. Other times it teaches patience, humility, or resilience. If you're willing to study your setbacks instead of running from them, every disappointment becomes a lesson that prepares you for future success. Think about learning to walk as a child. You didn't master it on your first attempt. You stumbled, lost your balance, and fell countless times. Yet no one looked at a toddler and concluded they simply weren't meant to walk. Falling was accepted as part of the learning process. Somewhere along the way, many adults forgot that principle. We began expecting ourselves to succeed immediately and started viewing mistakes as evidence that we should stop trying. But mastery has never worked that way. Every expert was once a beginner. Every leader has made poor decisions. Every successful entrepreneur has faced rejection. Every accomplished athlete has lost competitions. Every confident speaker has experienced moments of self-doubt. The path may differ, but the pattern remains remarkably consistent. Progress belongs to those who continue after disappointment, not to those who avoid disappointment altogether. Criticism often arrives alongside failure, and it can be just as discouraging. Some criticism is helpful. It points out weaknesses you genuinely need to improve. Other criticism comes from people who have never attempted what you're trying to accomplish. Wisdom lies in learning the difference. Listen without becoming defensive. Learn without becoming discouraged. Improve without losing your sense of direction. Never allow one opinion to outweigh your own commitment to growth. There is also a hidden benefit to failure that many people overlook. It builds emotional strength. The first setback feels overwhelming because it's unfamiliar. The second feels manageable. By the 5th or 10th challenge, you begin to realize something powerful. You can survive disappointment without losing yourself. That realization creates a quiet confidence that success alone can never provide. Eventually, you stop fearing failure because you've proven to yourself that recovery is always possible. From that moment forward, failure no longer controls your decisions. It becomes part of your education. Remember, the purpose of confidence isn't to protect you from difficult moments. Its purpose is to help you move through them without giving up. Every setback you overcome becomes evidence that your character is stronger than your circumstances. So don't measure your life by how many times you fall. Measure it by how many times you rise with greater wisdom, stronger resolve, and a deeper belief in your ability to keep moving forward. Because your greatest victories are rarely built on uninterrupted success. They're built on the courage to transform every defeat into another step toward becoming the person you were meant to be. Chapter 8. Break every chain of approval. By now you've challenged limiting beliefs, faced fear head-on, acted before you felt ready, embraced discomfort, built discipline, strengthened your presence, and learned to rise after failure. Yet there is one final obstacle that quietly weakens even the most capable people: the need to be approved. Unlike fear, this obstacle rarely announces itself. It slips into everyday decisions so naturally that many people never realize it's there. You agree with opinions you don't actually share. You apologize when you've done nothing wrong. You stay silent to avoid conflict. You delay important decisions because you're waiting for someone else to tell you they're the right ones. Over time, a dangerous habit develops. Instead of asking, "What do I believe?" you begin asking, "What will people think?" That single question has prevented countless dreams from becoming reality. Seeking acceptance is part of human nature. We all want to belong. Relationships matter, community matters, encouragement matters. But there is a difference between valuing connection and surrendering your identity in order to keep it. When your self-worth depends on other people's approval, your confidence becomes fragile. It rises when you're praised and falls when you're criticized. Your emotional stability is placed in the hands of people who may not even understand your goals. That is not confidence. That is dependence. Think about how many important decisions people postpone because they fear disappointing someone else. They remain in careers that no longer inspire them, continue unhealthy relationships, or ignore opportunities simply because they worry about being judged. They aren't trapped by circumstances alone. They're trapped by imagined reactions. Here's something worth remembering. No matter what path you choose, someone will disagree with it. If you play it safe, someone will say you're not ambitious enough. If you take a bold risk, someone will say you're being unrealistic. If you succeed, some people will admire you while others question your motives. If you fail, some will criticize your choices. Trying to satisfy everyone is a race with no finish line because the expectations of others are constantly changing. Real confidence begins the day you stop trying to earn universal approval. This doesn't mean becoming arrogant or dismissive. It doesn't mean ignoring wise advice or refusing to listen to constructive feedback. In fact, confident people often seek honest feedback because they want to improve. The difference is that they don't allow other people's opinions to replace their own judgment. They listen, they reflect, then they decide for themselves. One of the clearest signs that you're becoming emotionally independent is your ability to say no without feeling guilty. Every time you say yes to something that goes against your values, you're saying no to something that truly matters. Your time, energy, and attention are limited resources. Protecting them isn't selfish, it's responsible. Healthy boundaries are not walls that push people away. They are clear lines that protect what matters most. The people who genuinely respect you won't expect you to abandon your principles to make them comfortable. In fact, many will trust you more because they know your words have meaning. You don't agree simply to avoid discomfort. You choose honesty, even when it's difficult. There is another quiet freedom that comes with releasing the need for approval. You stop performing. You stop trying to appear perfect. You stop measuring every word before speaking. Instead, you become more authentic. You laugh more naturally. You admit your mistakes without feeling ashamed. You ask questions when you don't know the answer. Ironically, the less energy you spend trying to impress people, the more genuine connections you begin to build. Authenticity creates trust in ways perfection never can. As you've discovered throughout this journey, confidence isn't about controlling how others see you. It's about strengthening how you see yourself. When your actions align with your values, your self-respect grows. And once self-respect becomes your foundation, outside opinions lose much of their power. From this point forward, let your decisions be guided by purpose rather than applause. Choose principles over popularity. Choose integrity over approval. Choose growth over comfort. Because the strongest people are not those who never face criticism. They are the ones who continue moving toward what matters, even when applause is absent and approval never comes. The day you stop asking for permission to become the person you're meant to be is the day you discover a freedom that no one else can give and no one else can take away. Chapter 9. Become someone fear can no longer recognize. You've come a long way from where this journey began. You challenged the beliefs that once limited you, confronted the fears hiding beneath your decisions, took action before certainty arrived, learned to grow through discomfort, built discipline, developed a stronger presence, transformed setbacks into lessons, and freed yourself from the exhausting need for approval. Now comes the most important shift of all. It's time to stop acting like a confident person and start becoming one. Many people spend years trying to change their behavior without ever changing the way they see themselves. They force themselves to be courageous in one situation only to fall back into old habits the next day. The problem isn't a lack of effort. The problem is that they're still operating from an identity that belongs to their past. Behavior may create momentum, but identity creates consistency. Think about someone who decides to become physically healthy. At first, they focus on individual actions, eating better, exercising regularly, and getting enough sleep. Over time, those actions become part of who they are. They no longer wake up asking whether they should make healthy choices. That's simply the kind of person they've become. Confidence follows the same pattern. In the beginning, every courageous decision feels intentional. You have to remind yourself to speak up, take initiative, or face uncomfortable situations. But after enough repetition, those actions stop feeling forced. They become natural because your identity has changed. This is the moment when fear begins to lose its influence, not because it disappears, but because it no longer matches the person you've become. Imagine meeting someone who knew you 10 years ago. They might remember the quieter version of you, the one who avoided difficult conversations or hesitated before taking risks. But people grow. If you've done the work, that older version no longer tells the full story. The greatest mistake you can make is continuing to introduce yourself to the world with yesterday's identity. Your future deserves a stronger introduction. One powerful way to strengthen your identity is to raise your personal standards. Goals focus on outcomes. Standards focus on how you choose to live every day. A goal might be to become more confident at work. A standard is refusing to stay silent when you have something meaningful to contribute. A goal may be to become healthier. A standard is treating your body with consistent care. Goals can be achieved and forgotten. Standards shape the person you continue becoming. As your standards rise, your decisions become clearer. You stop asking, what feels easiest? You begin asking, what aligns with the person I'm committed to becoming? That question changes everything. It shifts your attention away from temporary emotions and toward long-term character. There will still be difficult days. Confidence doesn't remove uncertainty, disappointment, or unexpected challenges. Life will continue testing your patience, resilience, and courage. The difference is that you now respond from a stronger foundation. Instead of asking whether you're capable, you remind yourself of everything you've already overcome. Instead of retreating at the first sign of difficulty, you move forward with patience and determination. Instead of allowing fear to define your future, you allow your values to guide your choices. People often think confidence is something they must protect. In reality, confidence grows every time it's put to work. The more responsibilities you accept, the more conversations you initiate, the more challenges you embrace, the stronger your identity becomes. Confidence isn't preserved by avoiding difficult situations. It's strengthened by repeatedly proving to yourself that you can handle them. Eventually, something remarkable happens. You stop chasing confidence because you're too busy living it. Others begin noticing your calmness under pressure, your willingness to act, and your ability to remain steady when circumstances become uncertain. They may assume you've always been this way. Only you know the truth. They aren't seeing natural confidence. They're seeing the result of hundreds of small decisions made when no one was watching. They're seeing the outcome of promises you kept to yourself, fears you refused to obey, failures you turned into lessons, and values you chose over approval. This is what real transformation looks like. Fear may still appear from time to time, but when it looks at you now, it no longer recognizes the person it once controlled. And that's because you're no longer living as the person you used to be. You're living as the person you deliberately chose to become. Chapter 10. Lead a life fear can never control again. You've reached the final chapter, but this isn't the end of your journey. It's the beginning of a different way of living. Throughout this audiobook, you've uncovered a truth that many people spend their entire lives chasing without fully understanding. Confidence was never something waiting for you at the finish line. It wasn't hidden inside a promotion, a larger paycheck, a perfect relationship, or the approval of other people. It was built quietly and steadily every time you chose action over hesitation, growth over comfort, and purpose over fear. Now the question is no longer, how do I become confident? The question is, how do I protect the person I've become? The answer isn't found in one extraordinary achievement. It's found in the ordinary choices you make every single day. Life will continue to test you. There will be new opportunities that stretch your abilities, unexpected setbacks that challenge your resilience, and moments when old fears quietly return, whispering familiar doubts. The difference is that you no longer have to believe everything fear tells you. Fear may still speak. It simply no longer gets the final vote. One of the greatest dangers after personal growth is believing you've arrived. Confidence is not a destination where you unpack your bags and remain unchanged forever. It's more like physical fitness. The strength you've built today is maintained by the decisions you make tomorrow. Stop practicing courage, and hesitation slowly returns. Continue practicing it, and confidence keeps expanding into new areas of your life. That's why growth must become a lifestyle rather than a project. Keep learning, keep asking difficult questions, keep accepting challenges that force you to grow beyond your current limits. Every new experience reminds you that your potential is far greater than your comfort zone would have you believe. Another responsibility comes with confidence that many people overlook. Once you've learned to lead yourself, you naturally begin influencing others. You may never stand on a stage or write a best-selling book, but your example will still speak. Your children will notice how you respond to adversity. Your friends will remember the courage you showed during difficult moments. Your colleagues will observe your integrity under pressure. Even strangers may find encouragement simply by watching someone choose kindness, honesty, and courage when it would have been easier to choose fear. Leadership isn't reserved for people with impressive titles. Leadership begins the moment your actions inspire someone else to believe that change is possible. As your confidence grows, remain humble. Never confuse confidence with certainty. Confident people don't pretend to know everything. They stay curious. They listen carefully. They admit mistakes quickly. They understand that learning never ends, and they welcome every opportunity to become wiser than they were yesterday. Humility protects confidence from becoming arrogance. It reminds you that every person you meet has something to teach you, and every challenge still has something to reveal. Most importantly, continue keeping the promises you make to yourself. Those promises may seem small. Wake up when you said you would. Have the conversation you've been avoiding. Finish what you started. Apologize when you're wrong. Ask for help when you need it. Take the opportunity that scares you. These simple acts may never attract applause, but they quietly strengthen the foundation of your character. They reinforce the identity you've worked so hard to build. When confidence is rooted in consistent action instead of temporary emotion, it becomes remarkably difficult to shake. Years from now, you may not remember every fear you faced or every obstacle you overcame. What you will remember is the person you became because you refused to let fear make your decisions. That is the true reward of this journey, not a life without uncertainty, not a future free from failure, but a life where your choices are guided by purpose instead of panic, by values instead of validation, and by courage instead of comfort. So keep taking the next step, even when the path isn't perfectly clear. Keep choosing discipline when motivation fades. Keep standing for what you believe when it's unpopular. Keep moving forward, even if the progress feels slow. Because confidence is not measured by how rarely you feel afraid. It is measured by how consistently you move forward despite it. From this day on, let fear be a passenger, never the driver. Let courage become your habit. Let integrity become your compass. And let every decision you make remind you of one unforgettable truth. The strongest version of yourself was never waiting somewhere in the future. You built that person, one courageous choice at a time. Conclusion. When this journey began, you may have believed confidence was something reserved for a fortunate few. Perhaps you thought it belonged to people who were naturally charismatic, exceptionally talented, or somehow untouched by fear. But if there's one truth this audiobook has revealed, it's that confidence has never belonged to a select group of people. It belongs to those who repeatedly choose courage over avoidance, action over hesitation, and growth over comfort. Take a moment to reflect on how far you've come. You challenged the limiting beliefs that quietly shaped your identity. You uncovered the fears influencing your decisions. You learned that waiting to feel ready only strengthens hesitation, while taking action, however imperfect, creates momentum. You discovered that discomfort isn't evidence you're on the wrong path. It's often proof that you're expanding beyond the boundaries of your former self. You built discipline, strengthened your presence, transformed setbacks into valuable lessons, released the exhausting need for constant approval, and embraced an identity rooted in purpose instead of fear. None of these changes happened through a single dramatic breakthrough. They were built through small, intentional choices. That's how real confidence grows. It isn't created in moments when life is easy. It's developed every time you keep a promise to yourself, speak when your voice trembles, recover after disappointment, or take another step despite uncertainty. As you move forward, remember that confidence isn't something you achieve once and keep forever. It's a practice. Some days you'll feel bold, while on other days, old doubts may return. That's completely normal. The difference now is that you know doubt doesn't have to determine your direction. You can acknowledge fear without obeying it. You can feel uncertain without standing still. From this point on, don't measure your progress by the absence of fear. Measure it by your willingness to keep moving. Every challenge you accept, every difficult conversation you face, every opportunity you pursue, and every promise you keep to yourself strengthens the person you're becoming. The world doesn't need a perfect version of you. It needs the authentic version, the one willing to learn, adapt, and continue growing regardless of obstacles. Keep raising your standards. Keep acting with integrity. Keep choosing courage in the ordinary moments that shape extraordinary lives. One day, someone will look at your confidence and assume it came naturally. Only you will know the truth. It was earned through persistence. It was strengthened through adversity. It was protected through discipline, and it was built one courageous decision at a time. So close this audiobook with one simple commitment to yourself. No matter what challenges lie ahead, fear will no longer decide the direction of your life. From today forward, let your actions speak louder than your doubts. Let your character become stronger than your circumstances, and let every step you take remind you that confidence is never found. It is forged every single day you choose to move forward.